Hi, BookTube, Lynette here again with your fifth weekly update of my reading. It's been a slow week for reading, although I have enjoyed what I've read. I have only finished 2 books this week, and I've gotten way behind on my read along of Game of Thrones. So, first of all, the first book that I finished is Blood Fury by J.R. Ward. This is the 3rd book in her Black Dagger Brotherhood Legacy series, and it was also the 3rd book in my Romanceopoly read-along that I'm doing this year. Blood Fury, or if you don't know, the Black Dagger Brotherhood is a band of vampire warriors. They aren't vampires who feed off humans, they can only feed off each other. And the Black Dagger Brotherhood books is based around this band of warriors who are all finding their happy ever afters. And then as a spin-off, because there's so many threads coming into this world, J.R. Ward has written the Black Dagger Brotherhood Legacy series, and these are about a group of trainee fighters that they have brought into the compound to help them fight in their war against a band called the Lessers, who are a band of evil people, really, who are killing vampires. So the story revolves around 2 of the trainees. It revolves around Peyton and Novo. Both are from the general wider vampire world. Peyton is part of the aristocracy in the vampire world, and Novo isn't. Or basically, there's not a lot of backstory. There is something that happens in the beginning of the book, which then gives Peyton the excuse he needs to get closer to Novo, because he starts to realise that actually she's more than just the surface level that she shows. It's a lovely story, very quick to read. I got through it in a couple of days and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It actually gave me a bit of a taste for this world again. I've been falling out of love with the main Black Dagger Brotherhood books. The last book was a bit wishy-washy with the romance. The book before that, the romance, well, it didn't go the way that people thought it would, but then it would have been too cheesy if it had gone the way people thought it would. So this has really given me a taste to get back into the world again. And I am a little bit behind. I've got another 3 books in this world, 1 of the Black Dagger Brotherhoods to read, and I think I've got 2 in the Legacy series to read. I think there was a short story that was maybe set in the it might not be Legacy actually, and then there's a Legacy book that came out in end of December, beginning of January, and then there's another book due to come out in April, so I want to catch up a little bit with those. So hopefully I can do that. Maybe the Romanceopoly will give me an excuse to do that this year as well. So the second book that I finished was a steampunk book. Now this is a new genre for me. I've not really read, I think I've read 1 steampunk type book before, but I think it might have been a bit of a dark romance as well, which I didn't enjoy so much and never followed up on. But and on Romanceopoly it was London Street, and I can't remember what the exact prompt was, but it took me to a steampunk book that I've had sat on my TBR since 2014, and that was The Iron Duke by Mel Jean Brooke. Again, didn't take me very long, only took me a couple of days to read, and again I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm really intrigued, and I've got the second book, because this is a series of books that she's written, and I've got the second book on my wish list to pick up, maybe if the fancy strikes me later in the year. It's set in England primarily, although it does take you down the coast of Africa, and a little bit into Venice, but not much happens there. And it's the story of an inspector who is also part of London aristocracy, and also a newly made duke, hence the title, the Iron Duke. And it's set in like an alternative. England's been through the Industrial Revolution, but there was this invasion by the Horde, and the Horde are never really explained what they are. I don't know whether she's written any other books that explain where they came from, but in this book they seem to be mainly centred in the Far Eastern world. And they invaded England, they took us over, and they've basically, while they were here, they had a series of frenzies, which meant they then basically raped a lot of women, and humans were forced into sexual situations that they didn't want to be in. Some of them managed to do it with people that they wanted to be in a sexual situation with. But the main inspector in this story, whose name escapes me, and I will look it up and put it down below, she was the product of one of these frenzies, but unfortunately her mother was raped by a member of the Horde. So her facial features and everything, she's not... I get the impression that it's more that she looks more mechanical than she does human. And people actually despise the Horde, and by turn they despise anybody who is a product of a Horde frenzy. So they... although she's an inspector, she's well respected for her job, but people who don't know what she does obviously take against her because of that, because she's part Horde. And she gets called to the Duke of Anglesy's home, the Duke of Anglesey being the Iron Duke, because a body has been found in his garden, having fallen supposedly from the roof. The Duke and the inspector are taken by each other, and although neither will admit it, and obviously there's a lot of stigma attached to being involved with someone who's part Horde or was Horde. So she quite rightly is concerned that she doesn't want to get involved with anybody because of the way they would view the relationship, and also view her by turn. Basically they're treated as they call them jade whores, so they're not looked on very kindly at all. They're lower than the lowest in this society. So she doesn't want to get involved, and he does, so he comes to an arrangement with her, and all the time they're trying to solve the murder and also the disappearance of the inspector's younger brother. And it's their love story. It's how they fall in love, and there is some feels. Like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It didn't make me feel all the feelings. There was one scene in the book which I felt was a bit dodgy. It was more... he didn't rape her, but there wasn't consent for what he did do, and it's quite clear as the story is going on in that section that she's not giving consent at all. She says no on more than one occasion, but because he doesn't listen to the tone of her no, he doesn't realise that she's saying no because she wants it to stop, and that left me with a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But I thought, well, I'll keep going because it was more misunderstanding than anything, but so I kept going. But Mel Jean Brooke then actually treats all their encounters with respect, and it doesn't happen again. And he's quite clearly a man who's remorseful about this, and obviously would not, he would have stopped had he realised, had he bothered to look up from what he was doing. That sounds really weird. So yes, he. It does, that did leave me with a bad taste in my mouth, but their romance as they went on actually got better, to the point where there is an action that happens that actually did make me cry in the end, but then I was really pleased by the ending as well, so it really did work out very well, and Yes, so I am quite intrigued by this world, and I do want to read more by this author, and I'm quite tempted to read more in the steampunk genre in future. So that was the 2 books that I read this week. As I said, I'm way behind with my Game of Thrones read along. I haven't read anything at all this week. So I have 11 chapters to catch up on to be where I need to be today. Not going to happen. I'm going to have to see how I go. I've also picked up the 2nd book in the Witcher series because I was quite intrigued by that story, those short stories. And the 2nd book is a series of short stories. Again, I've only got February to read them. However, the read-along, the person who's doing the read-along, she's not doing anything in March because she has her own book releasing in March, and she wants to concentrate on that. So I've got a little bit of extra time if I fall a bit behind this month to catch up in March. Also, I've downloaded Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson because the person who's doing the Witcher read-along is also doing a Brandon Sanderson read-along, and Warbreaker is the book for February. I didn't take part in it in January because it was his first book, Elantris, which I've already read, so I didn't really feel like rereading it. I still remember a lot of what happened. So that's what I'm reading in the coming week. I've also rolled the dice for my Romanceopoly, and I landed on, let me just find it again. I landed on Austen Row, and that's to read an historical romance, and I've picked up The Raven Prince by Elizabeth Hoyt. And Romanceopoly have also announced their first mystery read of the year, which runs from the 1st of February to the 1st of April. And that is to read a book in a series where the two main characters are fated to be together. So it's looking at paranormal and shifter style stories. So for that one, again, there's another series I'm way behind on. It's the Eternal Mate series by Felicity Heaton, and I am going to be reading Possessed by a Dark Warrior for that option, because I've got 2 months to read that one now. But that's a quick, easy read. I should be able to get that over and done with. And hopefully I can make some good headway with the rest of Romanceopoly as well. I haven't looked to see how many books I need to read to get through all the squares, but I think I'm doing quite well anyway. A lot of the books I'm picking are fairly easy reads, so I think I shall be doing quite well with this one. So that's it. That's my reading for week 5. I hope your reading week went really well. Let me know in the comments down below how well you did, and I will speak to you all again next week.